On migrants this year passes 14,000. Can the authorities realistically be expected to stop terrorists slipping through the net? But to the shocking story of how the private bank Coutts closed Nigel Farage's account because, frankly, well, they just don't agree with his political views. Yesterday, Nigel revealed a dossier produced by Coutts, who claim that the GB News presenter's views do not align with its purpose and values. Well, earlier, we pulled together a people's panel in Birmingham, and this is what one chap there thought.
I can't imagine why a bank would close somebody's account because of their views. You know, I can imagine closing somebody's account, you know, because I used to be involved in doing that, if they were involved in criminal activity or money laundering, etc., etc. The only problem is, and the only thing I think about this is, I saw this creeping in before I left my employer. Too many banks in this country have decided to go down the route of flagging up that how brilliant we are on Stonewall and all of these types of things, rather than concentrating on what their actual job is.
Well, everyone knows it's happening, and now we have proof. Nigel joins me. Thank you very much. Nigel, have you had an apology?
No, goodness no. Nothing of the kind. Just briefings that they give out to, you know, the BBC or whoever it might be, with absolutely no regard for client confidentiality, GDPR regulations. No, this has turned into a full-on fight. And, Patrick, they have been cancelling people's bank accounts for some time. That last witness there from Birmingham said he saw it towards the end of his career. A series of European Union directives, over-regulation in this country, crazy compliance departments, you know, have made it just so easy for banks to say, you know what, your little business, your little fish counter that takes only cash, we don't want your business, because, you know, you might be a front for a Colombian drug ring. And so it's been happening to all sorts of people. It's happened to politically exposed people. We know Nigel Lawson's granddaughter was refused a bank account on the basis that she was a PEP. But in my case, this is very different. This is absolutely clear discrimination on the grounds of my views. And my views are perfectly lawful, legal, and by the way, majority views in this country. And so this has turned into a very big battle, but it's not a battle just about me, it's about the way the banks have been behaving.
Yeah, it's about the way the banks have been behaving. I would argue as well it's a battle for everybody, frankly, and you going into battle for those people.
Well, I think it is, and Patrick, here's why. Refinitiv, who one of the big global credit agencies, your name's on there, all of our names are on there. That's where banks go to get credit checks, to find out, you know, did we leave a bad debt in a foreign country or something like that. So I get why they're there. They are now working with UK banks, so they'll be able very shortly to monitor the social media posts of people with individual bank accounts.
But why? For what gain?
Because it seems that the banking world, and certainly what we're talking about here is NatWest. You know, Coutts is part of the same group as the mega NatWest with their 19 million customers. The new boss of NatWest, Dame Alison Rose, has decided that the bank's main priorities are fighting climate change and campaigning for LGBT rights. Quite what any of this has to do with banking, I've no idea. So they've become hugely politicised, and really they should be neutral. And remember that 38.6% of the NatWest Coutts banking firm is owned by us, the taxpayer. Our taxes went up to bail out the greed and stupidity of these banks back in 2008. They have no right in this position to now be moral arbiters. So if they can take me out of the equation, they can take out a lot of other people too. This needs to be dealt with. And the one thing I will say, Patrick, is I've never, ever put my head over the parapet on an issue and received such broad cross-party support as I'm getting, because I'm normally seen to be a very polarising figure on a variety of issues.
Not the reason why Coutts banned you.
Well, clearly. Cross-party support. And I've really been, I have to say, for Grant Shapps to sit in this studio this morning, I mean, somebody who I've never agreed with really on anything and I've been fighting against for a quarter of a century, you know, for Shapps to come out as clearly as he was to say how absolutely awful this was, I was pleased with. The City Minister, Andrew Griffith, actually sent me a personal message to say we're going to get on with this, we're going to deal with this, we're going to change the rules. Rishi Sunak responding to David Davis in the House of Commons, who named me. Rishi Sunak later on tweeted my Telegraph piece.
Yes.
And now Elon Musk has joined in and liked Rishi Sunak's tweet and said, here, here. So this is gaining currency. Banks should not be behaving as social engineering platforms. They should be there as banks.
And I think one of the reasons why you've had such broad support on all of this and why people are getting involved now is I think this might be some kind of watershed moment. I certainly hope it will be, because I think it's the culmination of a lot of a certain type of ideology infiltrating the very fabric of, frankly, everything, right the way through from schools into social media, then into your finances. And so we have a situation at the moment, in my view, where a certain worldview, a certain type of values, starts young with kids at schools, then works its way through to the high street, advertisers, we see that all the time on television as well. Then it infiltrates various different other sectors as well, culminating in you potentially being financially crippled with the help of social media companies. And what you have done, I think, is highlight that. And that, frankly, is not a million miles off a Chinese-style social credit system.
Well, that's the worry. That's the worry. I mean, on my show last night here on GB News, I explained to people what the Chinese social credit model is. Because we hear about it, we very rarely talk about it. But, yeah, I mean, look, without a bank account, you become a non-person. Without a bank account, you can't participate in normal life. And if that's being done to people on the basis of their opinions, well, it's a very, very sinister move.
So what next?
What next is, well, I'm going to keep fighting and pushing and trying to broaden this argument as much as I can. I've been, even with the media, you know, even the Financial Times and newspapers like that are beginning to report this very fairly and very accurately. The BBC is still a little bit behind on some of this, unsurprisingly. I'm going to keep pushing, broadening the debate, gaining support, and I'll be saying tonight at 7 o'clock on GB News, if you've been cancelled by your bank, please let me know. I've got the resources here now at GB News to follow these cases up. And I'm going to encourage people who've been given a tough time by their banks to put in their own subject access requests. Patrick, I didn't even know 8 weeks ago what a subject access request was, right? But it's because of that that I've managed to get to the truth, and I want to encourage other people to do the same thing. You know, for example, your bank's got rid of your overdraft limit. It's refused you an extension to your mortgage, or whatever it may be. You've got the right to get this information out of them, and I'm going to encourage people to start doing that. Let's start to put some pressure back on this industry.
And the bleak thing, the bleak thing is that it could actually be because you tweeted something.
Well,
maybe.
Listen, I didn't know. I assumed what I would get back would be a whole series of stuff about my political status.
Yes.
And why the compliance costs of that were high and therefore they didn't want me. What I actually got back was bile, vitriol and metropolitan elite prejudice on a scale. I mean, frankly, some of the wording, some of the stuff that's written in there is extraordinary. You know, he's not been convicted of any criminal activity yet. It just shows you the mindset of what we're dealing with here. I mean, it is an absolutely vile document, and other people might discover extraordinary things about themselves too.
No, indeed. Look, we are the People's Channel. Many people regard you as being the People's Champion, and this is exactly the kind of stuff that we should be doing and you should be doing. You've got incredibly broad shoulders, and like you said last night on Dan Wootton's show as well, you shouldn't pick a fight with the hardest man in the pub, and I think people are going to find out about that the hard way, Nigel, aren't they? Look, thank you very much. I really look forward to your show this evening. I know the nation does as well. Nigel Farage.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you very, very much. Right, OK, look, I will just say something. I'm not just saying this because he's sat here. I mean, this guy takes on a huge amount of stuff on his shoulders, like I've said there. And when it comes to an issue like this, just think how easy it would be to actually not say anything. Just think how easy it would be. And this is how a lot of people get you, right? It's how a lot of the big banks get you. They don't want... They bank on the fact, for want of a better phrase, that you will not come out and suffer maybe some kind of personal reputational damage by admitting, oh, I've been cancelled by this. They think, oh, you won't have the staying power and the stamina in order to go and see that one through. You might not then, therefore, go the whole hog as well and decide that you're going to take up legal action. But, you know... They bank on the wrong guy there, didn't they?